I'm here with Bill Schaninger, who is the Senior Partner Emeritus at McKinsey. I should say co-author of Power to the Middle. Here I am doing my game show. Excellent book. I've actually read it, the PDF. So Bill, first of all, welcome. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
And you know, I hear the word middle, talk about middle managers. I myself am a middle manager, and sometimes it feels a little bit like you're on Dunder Mifflin, and it's just kind of meh. You know, is that like not to? Is that part of the problem we're dealing with here? Is how we perceive ourselves and how others perceive us?
Well, it's certainly how people perceive Scranton, PA.
Yes. Well, I mean, look, no offense to our current president, but
No.
you know.
No, there was a wonderful and no shortage of merch that relates to Dunder Mifflin and Scranton.
Yeah.
But, no, I mean, I think like shows like The Office, whether it's the Ricky Gervais version or the Steve Carell version, or
Ricky Gervais version is better.
I think it was.
Baseline.
I think it was. Yeah, but I mean, I'm clearly impacted by having lived in London for 4 years.
Okay.
When it was on.
Okay.
But this idea of the portrayal of the middle manager as a dolt, or a product of the machine, or someone who's there to give good meeting.
A victim of bureaucracy and a symptom of bureaucracy at the same time.
Both.
Yeah.
Almost always both. Sometimes they'll be portrayed as having a good heart, but just completely incompetence.
Yeah.
And they were parked there. Dilbert cartoons, Office Space. I mean, the entirety, the idea that the meme of TPS reports still goes on.
Well,
tells you something.
That's what unites Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg have both complained publicly in the past year about middle managers. Like, that's their problem. So let's use that as the baseline as to why this book exists, because it really is a testament to the power of the middle manager, but also I think analyzes why middle managers aren't often or always that effective.
For sure, it's a baseline of perception. I mean, no doubt about it. And in some cases, probably well-deserved, really, if you think about at least in my case, the earliest days of this book, there was going to be a front end of this book, which was a little bit more historical. And saying
the history of the middle manager?
A little bit of how did we get here? Now it's down to a chapter here. I wanted to do basically a two-parter. Our friends at Harvard were kind enough to say, we actually think it's 2 books, Bill. We'd be interested in both. My McKinsey colleagues were...
Let's do this book first, and then we'll see, kind of thing.
My McKinsey colleagues were less interested in the how did we get here.
Yeah.
Because there's a little bit of, if you look at, let's say, the run from 1990 till now, and so I was, in the second half of undergrad in 1990, re-engineering, right-sizing, Bethlehem Steel going cold, Mack Trucks moving away, Lucent losing a majority of its value.
Yep.
Right, you look at all these places, IBM going up and down, AT&T going up and down. All these places were historically GM going through its travails, Chrysler careening towards, or coming out of...
But GE and Jack Welch.
100%. That was on the era of the GM.
Triumph of the manager.
Rising up. Bossity was still around at that point. So you had this thing of, you had the iconic CEO, well, at the same time as a lot of institutions, Chainsaw Al didn't come to prominence. Al Dunlop didn't come to prominence for nothing.
The guy who would shoot rattlesnakes, that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and had some interesting approaches to accounting.
Yeah.
But the idea that the middle had gotten so bloated, largely going all the way back to a Sloan era view of GM, which was duplicate business units, fat everywhere, and it was laid at the feet of the people in the middle, right? I think the challenge is, for a long time, that was in an era where you needed individuals to carry the message. Memos were still a thing, written word. But as we went through the 90s and the interaction cost of communication nosedived, then you started saying, well, why do we need these people?
Why do we need an executive assistant? Why do we need a middle manager? And
that's right.
And there's some logic to that, because that's a significant cost.
For sure.
But what was the collateral damage?
Well, maybe more of the hidden things that we missed out on. I mean, for sure... And with all due respect to my former competitors at some other consultancies, the idea of you can rationalize all structure down to 6 by 6, span of control of 6 and layer 6, it's just absurd.
Right.
Right. The work that people do, you are a skilled professional. You actually you know what you do and what the people who work for you do. You could still even do some of it yourself, putting a package together, saying, hey, we have to put the top on here. There's likely still a bit of your job that's you doing the craft.
Yeah.
General counsels are the same way. Giving you a direct reports of 20 might be a mistake. If you're
So
ever,
you're talking like I know we're getting into management, but it seems Peter Principle, this idea of getting outside of one's area of expertise, is that the problem
well,
with
the
middle management?
yeah, for sure. One is you take the individual contributor and you make them a manager and do nothing for them, and
Right.
they just can't. That's
Yeah.
one. That was not what I was getting at for you. In your case, I was saying you are good at building teams. You've done it across institutions, but you still have a skill set.
Right.
In which case, giving you a span that's so big that doesn't allow you to still use your skill set would be a mistake.
Right.
You know, one of the examples we have in here of people saying their purpose was still achieved by doing the work they wanted to do, and they wanted to help people. For other people, that with all the joy of their work went away because they were doing budgets. And I think the challenge for middle managers is we homogenized many of them because it was convenient for cost cutting.
Yeah.
And we started just loading them up with forms and meetings and ever increasing
So they
spans.
became the master of admin as opposed to
and
the
dealing with the
master
bad
of their-
actors, right? They're
Yeah.
the ones dealing with the problem children, not actually get to doing it. And for sure, you know, if Jim Harder and the folks at at Gallup are to be believed, and others, maybe a third of them really aren't ever going to be up to it.
So
and so there you'd say, let's find something useful for them to do.